Just waiting for all the streams to come on board.
Winning.
Are we live? Are we ready?
How's South Africa doing in the World Cup?
That's not until next year. That's 2023 in France. Right, so I think we're live. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Welcome to the second circle of influencers. Tonight we'll be talking about all things Ahdb, what our plans are for the next 5 years. We'll also be talking about some labour in agriculture. If you're interested in getting in there into agriculture, but also if you're a farmer and you want to recruit people, how to become an employer of choice. If you're struggling with sound or visuals on any of it, so where can they watch it, Joe?
Ahdb YouTube.
Thank you. So please comment on there or comment on all of these people's streams. We'll be checking the questions. We're coming back to questions. Also, please tell us, whether you're in farming or whether it's in your non-farming. So give us, what sector you're in, why you're interested in agriculture. So these guys will be checking their phones. They'll be and we'll be getting it in. So if they fiddle about on their phones, that's why they're checking for comments, and we'll get back to those. So thank you everybody for giving up your times and joining us here tonight. Thanks Ollie for letting us use this place here. So before somebody comment on that, last time you said we should have a pig farmer. We had Flavin Obero, the Kenyan pig farmer, lined up, but he booked himself. So we'll get him here next time. Charlotte, you have got 2 pigs. So, yeah. So any pig?
Charlotte, yeah.
Joe and Ollie.
Actually.
Right.
Why is that?
YouTube named them.
Right. Okay. So we'll go around the room. So once. Right. We'll come to Emma last. So, Max, tell us who you are. Introduce yourself. Tell us where people can watch you, find you.
Thank you, Isaac. My name is Max McGilvery from Beanstalk Global. If you just dial up Beanstalk Global, you'll find us on all various social media channels. And it's great to have this relationship with the Ahdb. It's been so much fun, but we've also learned so much about what the Ahdb do. I think previously they could be could have been accused of not being good communicators, but crikey, they've really upped the game in recent times. So thank you very much for the invite to Liverpool. Ollie.
Yeah. And hopefully someone will explain a little bit more what Ahdb does when we go around the table. I've got my phone ready here so that I can read the comments as well. So we're streaming it on my channel as well as Ahdb channel. What am I supposed to be introducing myself as well?
Yeah.
From near Liverpool. Super easy to concentrate in the comments. I'm a cereal farmer from near Liverpool. And we are trying to see if this works again. This is the second time of doing it. So keep the chat comments coming in on the channel, which whether it's Ahdb's or mine, depending on what you're watching on.
Charlotte.
My name is Charlotte Ashley and I'm a beef and sheep farmer, soon to be dairy farmer from Cumbria. And I'll be streaming on the Farmers of the UK Twitter account and my own personal YouTube.
I'm Rebecca. I'm a 5th generation farmer. We are sheep and arable in North Yorkshire, and I'm streaming off my Instagram page today.
Joe.
So I'm Joe Seals. We're beef farmers, and we do a bit of arable as well, but nothing on the scale of what Ollie's does. And yeah, I do YouTube and TikTok. So we've decided to stream on that. I've also been on a TV show, but we'll not talk about that.
Go right.
No.
You started it now.
Giraffe. Blankety blanket was. It's a bit
Gina.
Inside joke for people.
Hi, my name's Gina. I'm a general farm worker on Arable and Flower Farm.
Emma.
Hi, I'm Emma Gray and I'm from the Isle of Bute and we farm sheep and cows.
Excellent. So, Will, over to you. Introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what Ahdb is and what we do.
Lovely. So, hi everyone, I'm Will Jackson from Ahdb. So I look after all the outward facing stuff for Ahdb. So kind of do a lot of the oversight in terms of what we do, how we talk about it, and and everything we do on the ground with farmers, right through to what we do on social media now, which is absolutely mad compared to where it was a little while ago. So I was just going to talk through just a little bit about who we are as HDB, and then I think we're going to have a bit of a chat about the sector plans that have come out over the last little while. So who are HDB? We are the Agriculture and Horticulture Development Board. We love a bloody acronym at AHDB. Everything's got an acronym. And essentially we're the levy body for the agriculture sector. So for every beef animal that's slaughtered, or sheep, or ton of grain, there is a levy on it. And then that levy all gets consolidated into a big pot, and we try and spend it in a way that is going to benefit all farmers and all the sectors. So it's about, in the different sectors, it's slightly different, and we'll get into kind of what the detail of that is, but it can be anything from marketing to looking at export markets to looking at on-farm meetings and helping farmers improve what they do on a day-to-day basis. So we do a wide range of things, and the aim of our organisation is to do things that levy payers can't do themselves. So you can make a real difference on your own farm or in your own business. We're here to do the bits that you kind of aggregate up and you can't do, because I mean, Ollie's obviously the most famous person in the world now, but he still can't afford to go and put an advert on TV to be able to sell more grain or whatever it might be. So
no, but you can put it on social media.
That is true, and so that's another part of it. So we try and do that. We try and do that bit that lies over the top that helps everybody be able to deliver. So that's kind of who we are as an organisation, and we do a real wide array of stuff, and I think we're going to get in and talk about that a little bit now.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about the sector plans and what we're doing with that, and then we'll get some everybody's opinions on that. So
yeah, so I'm really looking forward to everybody's opinions on it, and especially the comments, because it can be very different depending on which audience I'm in front of. So sector plans. So we've got these sector plans, and I think you've got one that you can show up to the camera there. That's the beef and lamb one, and that's the one I wrote, so that's obviously the best one. Okay. And so we've got them. So we work across 4 sectors: cereals and oilseeds, pork, dairy, and beef and lamb. So they're the 4 sectors we collect levy in. So what's happened over the last few years, I think it goes back to the point you were making before about us probably not being the best communicators in the world, is that there was a lot of work going on, but actually had we connected with levy payers, did people understand? And so we made a commitment a couple of years ago where we were going to go out and ask everybody what they thought. So what's important to you? Like in all your businesses, what did you think the most important thing that AHDB could deliver for you were? So we went out in the spring and we asked all levy payers basically that question. There's a list of things. Can you tell us on a scale of 1 to 5 how important this is? And then that's kind of been all those results were taken and kind of put together, and then went to our sector councils, and they're the levy payer representatives within AHDB. So levy payers who sit on a council, and basically then they take those results and make decisions on what we do. And this is the culmination of it. So this is having listened to everybody's feedback and taken in all the other contexts around the world. This is the output of it. And I'm not going to go through them all in great detail. They're all available on the HDB website, and there's also, if you can bear it, there is an hour and a half on each of them that's kind of set up it was set up a little bit like an interview kind of breakfast thing where we all sat around and talked about it, and that's on the HDB website if you want to go and have a look, and you can see each sector. Essentially, we've got the 4 sectors, and each of them has got 2 or 3 pillars of work in them. So if you look at the cereals and oilseeds sector, it's about trusted variety and product testing, independent practical research, market intelligence, and working across the supply chain. The livestock sectors are slightly different. That's much more technical in the C&O side of things. When we look at the livestock sectors, it's mainly about reputation. It is about marketing, it's about exports, it's about market intelligence. And so each one of the different livestock sectors has got a nuance on that. So in dairy and beef and lamb, there's a piece on genetics in there, whereas we're not as heavily into that in the pork side of things. And so each of them has got a nuance on that, but it's about reputation. It's about improving the reputation out there of the product that everybody here works so hard to produce. And so how can we make that better? How can we make sure that consumers are aware of it? And we were talking a little bit beforehand about some of the challenges that drives, about consumer perception, and actually how can we sell more of it across the world? Because the more we can sell across the world means that there's less pressure on the home market. So we've got the ability to do that. So that is really the crux of these, and I'm aware that we want to have a good discussion about this. So I'm going to probably leave it at that now.
Excellent. So you guys have had a look at them. what's your thoughts? Initial, Max, you look
I'm really keen to turn it back to you, Will. What do you need from us? What do you need from everyone around this table? What do you need from everyone dialed in to make this a success for you, the Ahdb, for the sector? What do you need from us?
I think one of the key things is engage. You know, kind of we want to include. So first of all, we want your views. You know, we actively want you to tell us what you think. You know, so it's a good question Isaac's asked. So in here, you know, what do you think about it? What do you think about the work we're trying to do? And we want to, because we're only at stage 1 in terms of doing that. So I think engage and then have a look at what we do, because not all of everything we do is going to be applicable to everybody, but I'd like everybody to be able to look at this and think, oh, actually, no, I get that. I get that's why they're spending the money that we work hard to do on that. So I think the key thing for me is engagement, and then tell us if you think we're wrong. Tell us if you think we're right. That sometimes does happen. Sometimes people do say that we're right, and I think that's the big thing for me, is just kind of get involved a little bit.
Yeah, because the last catch up we had. There's some very interesting comments from some certain people about the various trade groups that it was felt perhaps that we're not engaging with them enough, but we've got to engage with the likes of yourself, to use that word again, to make this a success.
Absolutely, and I think so. And each one of the different organisations offers something different. So we can't lobby. So we're overseen by government. So we can't lobby government. The NFU can do that, and all the various other unions can do that. So it's kind of how we all fit together a little bit. But I think that engagement, and nobody around this table or none of the farming organisations can do this on our own. We have to do it together. We have to kind of push along together. So I think it's really important that we do engage where we can do. But there's a responsibility on us there to give people the chance. And I mean, this is brilliant. I love this, because this is what it's all about.
So you want engagement. You want all of us, all of our various followers, to dial that up. And look at it online.
Absolutely. And look at our social media. We've got social media all across it, and challenge us through these guys. You know, if you've got comments, from any of these guys, ask them, and then they can give me a really hard time. So it's brilliant.
Rebecca, what's your thoughts? Initial thoughts
tonight, though, just tonight. Not tomorrow when he's gone.
Yeah, then it's your responsibility.
Put it on there. We'll put it. Yeah. So Rebecca, your initial thoughts.
My initial thought, and it comes up in all of them, is that it talks about these sector plans are the start of the conversation. Now, I think that's actually just quite a wishy-washy phrase, but if that actually means that this is going to start some action, because I think we see a lot of things where things are down in paper. Oh, we're pledging to do this. Yeah. We're pledging to do that. So if this means, as you're talking about engagement, that a conversation will actually continue out of this, good, that's a good start. But a conversation isn't actually going to necessarily change anything for us on farm if that conversation doesn't start action. And I guess for me, our conversation, yes, it's between farmers here with farmers in the Ahdb. And again, it's noted in these a lot, but it's the conversation with the public, which I think is the absolutely most crucial thing that we've got to do. And things like this are hopefully reaching the public as well. I mean, tell us, are you the public? Are you farmers? It'd be really interesting to know where you're coming from.
Tell us on the comments, who you are.
I think it's really interesting. It's a really good point. And it's very difficult when you're writing what is essentially a plan or a strategy document, not to make it sound too business speaky and wishy-washy and everything. And I don't know, you can tell me whether you think we've achieved that or not, but it's really important. So we've got lots of different touch points as well. So we have touch points with consumers. So we do the Eat Balanced adverts that are out there at the moment. So they're consumer facing. So we actually touch point with consumers, we touch points with industry, we touch point with farmers. And you're dead right. You've got to get that conversation balanced, but it has to lead to something. It can't just be talking for the sake of talking. So I agree with you 100%.
And if sorry.
Is the Eat Balanced, is that out there now?
That's out there now.
Well, it's out there now. So what we tend to do is, because again, so we talk about quite big sums of money. So that across the organisation, we've got 40 odd million pounds a year, which sounds like a huge, and it is a huge amount of money. But actually, when you break it down into what we've got to deliver, the marketing budget that we have isn't massive compared. So if you look at some companies out there, they'll have 60, 70 million quid to spend on advertising and run it through. We have a few million. So so we do the best we can. So we tend to put it in bursts. So Eat Balanced when it's on telly will be from January onwards, because of the post-Christmas dip and then we also have things like the January running then and various other things. So we want to make sure we're at the time of year when it's going to make the most impact. And then we have the kind of the always on stuff in the background, which is social media, which is all those splits and pieces. But there'll be a real big push from January through till March, and then we do a little bit at the end of summer as well, when we're coming off barbecue onto the flat.
So what sort of split will you put, like your slant on paying towards social media, maybe advertising, maybe on Facebook? Do you do like Facebook?
Yeah, so we do a bit of everything.
Or-
So it's across. So TV's obviously it's the most expensive one, and it's historically tended to get the best results. We know things are changing now. We know that I mean, everybody's got Sky now. You fast forward through the adverts, and you're kind of being skipped. Well, exactly.
YouTube.
It's all on YouTube.
It's all about YouTube, Ollie. Absolutely. So I think that so telly is a big spend. It still hits a lot of people of certain demographics, but we're trying to also look at where we can have the biggest impact. So it may be that we look at a certain demographic or area that we want to concentrate on. So we'll do some in print, we'll do some on social, we'll do some. So we had a deal where we did with the Mail Online. So that's the most viewed news website in the world, and we had the banner around the edge. In terms
And
of,
what follow through do you get from these things that you're putting out? So say, for instance, you spend so much on a TV advert, what follow through do you get going to your website? Do you see any?
Because we do measure it quite a lot.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so the measurement's really important. So what we actually try and do from the balance side of things is it's about attitudes towards dairy and red meat. It's not about trying to sell more lamb chops or more steaks or whatever it is, because supermarkets will do that. They want to sell it. They want to sell. We can't do that. So what we try and do is change people's attitudes. So the Eat Balance campaign is really based around 3 pillars. Nutrition, so it's about the fact that you get B12, which is really important for your diet, and that's more readily available in animal products than anything else. It's about sustainability. So how do we produce it? It's out in the fields out here. It's done in a climate and an area that is really made up for that. And the third thing is about what we do on farm. So is welfare in the right place in those? And so the 3 pillars around that are then looking to change people's attitudes. So last year when we did it, last year was the first full year we did it, and we saw a real good increase, sort of an 8% increase in people in linking the word sustainability to red meat when they've seen it, about intent to buy up about 7 or 8%. So the people who've seen it is having a real effect on. So what we're going to do is grow that, and we've got to make sure that we kind of keep tweaking the messaging to make sure we're making those gains.
Well, we need you on TV.
Nobody needs that. Nobody.
Back to this point that we made last time, 6 out of 10 kids don't know where any form of fresh produce or how it comes from. You look at a bit of a bleak example, Martin Lewis, the money.
Yeah.
Everyone goes to him. He's got no financial qualifications himself, but he's just picked it up and realizes what works and what works for the common man and lady. We need someone like you to be out there front of base and just telling it as it is, being on the chat, it's been on the Graham Norton, but to actually get that across, could we do that? Isaac, can we do that? And it's,
Are you going to get me on telly?
I think I do here. Well,
I'm on YouTube. I'm on YouTube
already. Like herding cats. So we've had a few comments coming in. Really fun things, and just remind people, what are we discussing here? What's the point of this meeting? So we're talking about Ahdb, how we plan, some of the plans going forward.
How we spend the money. How we're spending farmers' money.
Off my it was YouTube, I think, and is Red Tractor part of the Ahdb?
No, so Red Tractor is a separate organisation. So Ahdb and Red Tractor are separate organisations. We try and link with Red Tractor and other ones, so it's important we have conversations, as I was saying before, about linking together.
I think it's important as well to say that Ahdb collect the levy off all the farmers, but you don't actually know where all the farmers are because of the way the system is set up. So the whole point of this event is we collectively round the table know all the farmers. So we're not here to give you information as per se tonight. We can direct you to it, but more importantly, we want the information to come back in the comments so that Ahdb can make sure that they're spending our money in the right place.
Agreed.
We need to keep in mind, because if someone's just tuned in, they'll be like, well, why are these people sat around this table? What are Ahdb doing?
I was going to ask a question about the TV side. So obviously you've seen some success in that, but from my perspective, and I don't know with anybody else, we probably need to be targeting younger people, and something like this is a more online platform, but TV, I would say, and I couldn't tell you the stats, but is not really a younger demographic.
TikTok is.
So exactly. So how do you transfer quite serious, quite heavy messages at times to a more interactive and more online audience, and people who want something really instantly in simple form, often video form, or how do you transfer that? Is TV going to be outdated, basically?
It's a really good question, because we've got to make it interesting and accessible as well, haven't we? It's not just about, we can't just sit there and blandly throw facts out. So we've got a social strategy in terms of trying to how we can translate some of those into really quick kind of things that are going to engage people. I think TV at the moment is still an important medium, and it is still an important kind of get a way of getting to people, but we've also got to make sure we're putting plenty into the to other anything, because you're right, and especially if you look at things like, you know, lamb, especially, and other things, the younger generations aren't eating as much as they were, and you know, it's been propped up potentially by older generations and different ethnic groups.
Yeah.
So actually, how do we get into making sure that the people who are having less of it are doing more? So we will really focus on that.
And people don't like to go looking for the information. It needs to be fed, you know, that's
It's
the
my
reason
job
why
to give
people
it them.
like TikTok, things like TikTok work, because all you have to do is scroll and it just keeps coming up and coming up. Whereas TV, you can look at something, you can maybe engage with it, but there's not a link to click on with TV, or there's not something to follow directly. And do you know what? We're all lazy. We're all, you know, a bit uninterested in things like that.
How do you get into the Alexas? Because I've got an Alexa and every morning it starts putting recipes on, and then you can click it and it does it.
Yeah, so I mean, I am not this is not my absolute area of expertise, but I think, but it's interesting though, because we do stuff with recipes, and we do things, because, you know, at the end of the day, we want people to use British product, whether it's, you know, whether it's wheat, whether it's barley, whether it's beef, lamb, whatever it is. So we pull recipes together. We pull recipes together for all sorts of different markets and ethnicities, but depending on what people want. So all those side of things we can link in. So I don't know, I can maybe go and find out how I get on your Alexa in the morning, and you can knock up a lamb hot pot at lunchtime.
Sorry.
All right, go on, Ollie.
Just on the recipe. Do you have an Instagram account where you put a picture of something that looks amazing?
Yeah, so we do. So we do. So actually, what we have is we have some consumer facing. So we've got there's a difference in terms of what we do. So when we're talking to farmers, it's very, very different to when we're talking to consumers. So we've got consumer facing channels. And we'll put them in the link on here, because I can't remember what they are now, and I'm sure that Pegs will be able to put them up. Simply beef and lamb, love pork, and we eat balanced. So they've all got their own channels that are consumer facing, whereas our AHDB channels are the ones that we will talk to farmers about, and it will be probably a little bit more depth and informative on that side of things. Whereas the consumer channels are right, okay, in your face, we're selling you this.
Emma,
Do you have someone who can look at the algorithms on the internet? Because when people start typing in what, you know, about food and about different diets and stuff, it tends to be the sort of meat free is pushed a lot. And I think it would be good if you had someone who could challenge that sort of algorithm.
So it's interesting in terms of that. So I know a lot of companies will spend a lot of time on SEO and making sure that they, you know, that they can higher up the Google search and everything else. And, you know, and we've got we've got a limited resource, so we use the resource the best way we can. But what we try and do a lot is we try and challenge disinformation. So we've done a lot recently. So we've got a team who work on the reputation, and they basically look at what's been put out. So we've had 3 or 4 complaints upheld against advertisers. So one against Quorn, one against the Meatless Farm Company, and 2 or 3 others. Oatly, yeah, of course, yeah. And so, but the Meatless Farm one, they put an advert out there that was basically saying, eat this and you'll feel great, based on no fact or science or anything. So we challenged it through the Advertising Standards Authority and was upheld. So they had to withdraw that advert. So, and there's a link on the HDB website again that we can put in the chat on here. If you see something you think, right, that's rubbish or that's not true or whatever, we can then have a look at that and say, right, okay, well, do we challenge that? So we've had things change quite regularly on the BBC website, because again, they you know, they're not always using the right evidence or the right background to be able to deliver that. Universities, so lots of universities at the beginning of the year saying, oh, we'll go meat free. Well, we've had conversations with them and said, actually, are you looking at the right facts here? And that's changed some of a change in policy. So we do try and challenge misinformation. I think there's a limit to what we can do in terms of the Google search, because I think there's a lot of money and time been put into that, but we can kind of do what we can in that space.
so I've got a couple of questions. One on Joe's YouTube from Roger. Are AHDB going to put some adverts on YouTube? And then also one on Rebecca's from John Smith saying about schools and educate young people. So tell us a bit about the work that we do there.
Okay, so the first question about adverts on YouTube, we're looking at all social. So how can we get as wide a ranging as possible? And the team are looking at that, and you can paid for and really, again, it's you guys as well. You know, how can everybody out there, word of mouth and everything else. Education, really interesting and really good point. So you will, if you look in the sector plans, there's my plug. Education scored really highly when it came back from levy payers. So we're looking at basically doubling our investment in education at the moment. We've got an education team who work very hard on this, and it's about getting into schools and getting a bit of understanding about kind of new, because the biggest impact.
Can I stop you there?
You can.
Don't go into schools,
No.
go into teacher training.
Okay,
colleges.
that's all right. Sorry, that's
To be fair.
you're right. So you're right, Ollie. So, which is my bad phrasing there. So it's actually getting information into schools, not us turning up with a bag of eggs and saying this is where this is. Yeah, I know exactly. Too expensive to buy the eggs.
So at Cheshire Show each year, we show student teachers around the agricultural sector.
Yeah,
Bits of the show. And they, if you teach a teacher, they teach the kids for a lifetime.
Yeah.
A 20-something-year-old person can take in a lot of information in an hour and a half, and then they can teach it for 40 years.
Yeah.
Go into a school, you've got kids attending for 20-25 minutes.
Yeah.
And then
So you're right, Ollie, and that's exactly what we do. So we've got what's called Food Effect for Life. So that is about arming people with the information to be able to tell the right story in school. And some of that's based around nutrition, some of it's based around where the product comes from and everything else. So we have so what we want to do is interact with the consumer at almost every stage of their life, from when they're in school to when they are consuming the product at the end of it. And so, when they're shopping. And so just another thing we're doing is we're working with retailers at the moment on the meat aisle, because the meat aisle tends to be quite boring, bland. And so we're working on packaging, we're working on signage in terms of that. So we're looking at what we call reinventing retail, which is about getting the right information in front of people in the store.
Are the retailers open to that?
Yeah, absolutely. They want all that. I mean, they want to sell all the meat they can. I mean, so I used to work for retail. I used to work for Co-op, the supermarket, and I know from my experience there that if you're getting animal-based products into your basket, it lifts the basket spend. They want to, so they actively want to think about how they can sell more. So yeah, really good engagement with the retailers.
I think the school thing's a really interesting one, because in our young farmers group, obviously, a lot of the children are farmers, obviously all ages. And the amount of times that some of the junior members will have said to me that they've been alienated at school, not just by children, which happens, but by their teachers who have alienated them. I'm sure a lot of us have been to school smelling of whatever shed we've been in, or absolutely shattered because you've been helping your parents in the lambing shed or whatever it was. Or, I guess even on the school run or things like that, your parents might have turned up, covered in muck. And actually the teachers, and this is not all teachers at all, but some teachers are alienating the children. And I think so, as you've mentioned, it's a massive issue outside of the children.
When Facebook was invented, I can remember when Facebook was invented, and you suddenly get to see all the people you went to school with. And then I found that a load of them were teachers, but none of them had been in the real world. So they left the education system into the education system at college and university, and then went straight back into teaching. And the only outside world they've got was what someone else had told them. And I think there's it's the universities that people are, we've seen them trying to ban meat on menus, haven't we?
Yeah.
And it's because they all get together and they think they're saving the world, and they think they've come up with an idea, but really they just don't know the facts. Because in the UK, we can only really grow on most of it poor quality grass. We can't digest that as a protein. We've got to convert it into something that we can, which is sheep meat and animal meat.
Yep.
So just to remind people, put your comments in there. Tell us, who you, so what you do, whether you're farming or non-farming, and ask your questions on there. Joe, where can they find them?
Ahdb YouTube. Check it out on that. But I think people behind the camera can help with this reputation thing as well. Like if we can get people to have the information that you've got and take it into their school. There's loads of people watching now who've got kids and got kids at schools. Take a pamphlet or whatever it is and try and get out there and increase it.
That's the same old thing. The UK is becoming more and more urbanised, and hence why so many school teachers come from an urban background and can be potentially influenced by what they pick up in the media. Or
I'm gonna bring Gina in here because you're from a non-farming background. And so what's your thoughts on all of this?
Oh, going back to the schools, I reckon it should be a compulsory lecture, like
I agree.
lesson. At least, even if it's taught doesn't have to say every week, but it can be like once a month. There'll be all each class will go into obviously a lecture, and you get told about where it all comes from and how it all actually works. Because like you say, I reckon maybe not in school, maybe secondary school, like you say, when they're all a bit more aware of what's going on and the real world, as one would say. And then yeah, well, non-farming background. I literally left school, had a couple of pigs at home, and I was a bit like, well, my neighbour was a pig farmer, and he was like, oh, I'm going on holiday, would you mind looking after my pigs? And he had about 50. I was like, yeah, okay, this is great. It's fun. And he was like, have you considered going into it as a serious career? I said, well, I'm not really sure what I want to do. So I thought, do you know what, why not? I could enjoy it. And originally I wanted to go livestock route, so I went to Spa Shelter in Winchester. I lived in there for 2 years, did my level 3 extended diploma there. Like I say, not from a farming background, had my qualifications to get into the level 3, and loved every moment of it. I would
Brilliant.
not go back.
I will talk a bit more about that in a minute, but I've had a question here about our Ahdb planning on using farmers on social media and advertising campaign. You can actually probably just hold up that book again and give Tom another plug and for missing out. But yeah, so we've used Tom on the We Eat Balanced campaign. So that's the short answer on that.
I think using our channels isn't really the best way, because we're in like an echo chamber.
Yeah.
But like I think other YouTubers that are not farming related, maybe advertising with.
It's about broad.
So it's getting it out
widening
to
the
wider,
reach of the
not just
Ahdb
sending it
message.
to farmers.
Do you want a bit of an
Utilising.
example of that? So we've just so as we went into the last round of We Eat Balanced, it was Iron Awareness Week, and we worked with Emily McDonough, who is a doctor, but she's also a celebrity in terms of that. And basically we painted her iron coloured, and she went over all of our information that came in. And I think she's Peter Andre's wife, and she does a huge amount on that side of things. And we just got such a massive take up on it. And that was trying to get into the consumer end of things. So that's not got nothing to do with farming. That's about actually what was the benefit of meat and everything. So there's some of we use other examples of influencers outside of this, obviously a fantastic circle of influencers to try and deliver, unless one of you wants to go and get painted in iron next year for next
So we've talked a lot about in the consumer side, and we're going to revisit this in January. Let's talk a bit about some of the other things that we do at Ahdb. Had some comments on here on Rebecca's Instagram. Sheep Breeders Roundtable run by Ahdb a few weeks was excellent.
That's a really technical thing we do. So that's specifically about genetics and sheep breeding and how to drive improvement. But again, really important, back to the reputation piece, improvement in kind of environmental footprint and sustainability credentials driven by genetic improvement. So that's like really, really niche in terms of what we do. And it just shows some of the breadth.
I think actually, because you made this point in our last live, that you didn't, and I don't think many of us knew, even just some of the videos that are there on Ahdb of kind of everyday farming things. And
on a personal level, if I'd known the resources that were available 10 years ago, it would have benefited me greatly as a non-farmer going into farming. I didn't have a clue. So the reach, like this live will be going out to like all sorts of people from all manners and all walks of life. Hopefully some of them will see it and go, do you know what, there are videos on tubing calves. There are videos on airflow in sheds. If you are looking at putting a new shed up, there's specifications on how high your heel stones should be when your cows walk backwards off them. These are all things that Roy likened it to a giant filing cabinet on top of your silage pit. All the information is in there, but no one's accessing it. Yeah. And that's the bit that this is just throwing it out there and hopefully catching some people that didn't know the resources. They're already there. The research is being done. It's just whether farmers choose to go and look for, instead they'll go and spend 4 hours on Google looking for things, when the research has already been done, they might as well access it.
There's a huge amount in there, and that's where we need to keep banging this.
Yeah.
Ian Wright has asked on YouTube, I know from experience our local pig group through the Ahdb meet every month with farmers in the region. Do the beef and lamb producers do the same?
And we've had a question about monitor farms as well somewhere. So scrolling there. So
So each sector kind of operates slightly differently. So we bring groups of farmers together in whatever sector it is. So all the sectors and you know, some of them will be much more technical. So the pig groups are one area of doing it. In the beef and lamb side of things, the monitor farms are the way to do it. So we have I was at one last week actually, and we've got monitor farms dotted all around the country, and people can go along there, talk about a subject. I know they're on an ongoing basis. If you go to the Ahdb website and look at the event section, it'll basically give you a list of all the events for all the sectors.
There's one a mile away tomorrow about
Yes.
tyres.
Players.
Yeah, you know, in the correct tyre pressure, so we get damage.
Yeah.
What, and that's an AHDB one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got numbers on them.
Emma, so let's bring you into the conversation.
Yeah.
Hold on, Mac.
Yeah, so I think they do great things. Like I was part of an HDB focus group a couple of years ago, and up till that point, I had no idea of the information that was available. But you know, since then, and since I've known it's out there, I've taken advantage of it. I think your leaflets and everything are, you know, really helpful.
How do we get, if we're all sitting here as either coming into farming or, you know, actively kind of farming now, and we all don't know about it, how actually do you get the message out there about the resources that are around? Because clearly it hasn't been done as such yet, has it? Well, stumped everyone.
That's a good
Social
question.
media.
That's the million question.
All these people, like, I mean, I don't even know how many people are live on the stream, I can't see, but all of them people would possibly.
Maybe there should be some sort of communication, you know, when you get your sheet at the end, when you've sold your livestock, and you can see the levy comes off, maybe there should be a communication there, a website or something, so that people know exactly, look, I've paid this, now I'll see what I'm getting from a levy.
Like you pay council tax.
I think there's a bit of a reliance on others then as well, because we don't own that. So I think Ollie touched on it earlier on, but we don't actually know who all of you are. I know who you are because you're here, but in terms of levy payers generally, because the levy is paid through the processes generally, we never get to see the individuals who pay the levy. We've got our own database of producers, we know who a lot of them are, but we don't know who everybody is, so we can't even send an email out to everybody because there'll be a load of people who don't catch it.
And is that not something you could do?
I mean, we can't. So we aren't in terms of data rules and everything. We can't get that data at the moment, so we don't have access to that. So we try and build our own database as much as we can do. But that's why this is really important, and getting it, especially to the generation of people who are going to be watching this today, because it's a completely different generation that we've not traditionally locked into.
And one point I would make on that, and it's the case with other organisations where it's maybe the generation, well, above me, for example, who either in charge of the accounts, so they know what's been paid, or they're the one on the mailing list and the email list. And someone like me would actually, unless I go out asking my parents, okay, where is that document? Where's that email? I'm missed out of it. And actually myself, well, it's my sister as well, but we will hopefully be taking the farm forward in the future, but we'll have missed out on all of this information that could have been put out in the last few years because I haven't gone searching for it. If you see,
I get exactly what you mean.
We had a question there from Caleb, some kind of talking about some, using influence and clickbait and things like that, and which is, we're dipping our toes into that.
Yeah, he's basically said that you obviously have all the facts and figures, especially around eating meat and things. If you arm us with them facts and we can drip feed them,
absolutely.
And
on the more the merrier. So we've got kind of ambassador campaigns that we run on an ongoing basis. We just need to get it. We need to get it out further. So we've got plans as well to kind of overhaul what we're doing and how we communicate, and trying to lift that. And this is part of it. This is that Isaac and Mark have put together here, and getting you guys. It's brilliant. Because these are things that we've never done before. So I find it really exciting.
Is the sector in a crisis?
Is
the sector
as a whole?
Yeah, because you look at, say, poultry or horticulture, and is this the time for all of us in the Ahdb to really positively step up to assist the sector to create this societal change, to get people to buy? It just feels like everything is coming to something.
I think there are a bit of pros and cons in this. So there always is an issue at some point. So whether it's weather, whether it's, the pork sector's been in a really, really difficult place over the last 12 or 18 months. So there's always an issue. I think some of the things that have happened recently have actually put us in a stronger position. So you look at COVID, and suddenly people realise the value of food, and food security shot right up. You know, I was in Parliament a week or so ago giving evidence to the inquiry about national food security. And that's really brought it to the front. You know, we got a policy that was all about let's throw the border, let's import and export, and it's free trade. And actually, the situation in Ukraine has really highlighted the fact that actually that's all well and good until somebody turns a tap off, and then you're in a load of trouble. So I think that, you know, the advantage that we have as a sector, as an industry, the whole time is that people need to eat. And, you know, we need to provide and food. So we've always got an advantage that people will always want our product. And I think that we've got an opportunity now to be able to supercharge that, because people are actually looking at us and being really interested in what we're doing. So from a consumer point of view, I think that, you know, it's a good opportunity for us to do all of this and really, and, you know, the fact that you guys have all got this following out there and everything, and it won't all be farmers. You know, there'll be people who are watching it because they're interested in what you're doing, and, you know, whether it's This Farming Life or, you know, it resonates. Country File still gets whatever it's 6-7 million viewers on a Sunday. People care, people are interested. We do it every day, but if you go to a dinner party or whatever, I mean, I don't go to many. If I go out, if I go to the pub, and I start talking to people in the pub, then they're really interested in what we do. And, you know, I just think it's day to day, but it does resonate.
So let's talk about how do we get people into the industry? How do we keep people in the industry? If you know, some from outside of the industry, you know, what do you need? We had a question here on Gina's TikTok. Is grades important when you want to go into agriculture?
Not particularly. Well, depends really. I mean, they always offer, like, say if you haven't got your basics English and maths, they do offer to help you read through it, like to re-sit through it. Sorry, I can't get my words out then. And they will help you along the way. They won't not accept you. They just put you in whatever category I think is acceptable for where you are with your learning and what you're not, and then they'll help you through it. They won't
It's something we need to get away from, that, you know, so agriculture is the last resort.
If I could come in and but I actually went to Cambridge, so I've got a degree from Cambridge, and now I'm a farmer. I've got a master's as well, so you can do both. And if you have an academic background, you can still go and be just as farmer. I say there's no such thing as just a farmer, because it's not about academic intelligence. It's about being able to look after your animals to a high standard, know how your tractor works, fix whatever, use technology, use computing. But also, if you haven't got very good grades at school, there are so many other routes into farming, whether that's apprenticeships, whether that's just going to your local farm and saying, I'm committed, I'm going to work hard and I want a job. And actually, it's more about showing the skills you have and how you're going to apply them to a farming environment or other, you know, whether it's engineering, agronomy, whatever. So I think no grades, good grades.
There's a place for everyone, isn't there? That's
As long as you show determination that you're actually willing and keen to do the job and do the work and show that you want it.
And from a farmer side, so, you know, so we've just put something together called the labour life cycle. But from a farmer side, what's your thoughts, your opinions on how do we attract people into it? How do we keep people into this, and how do we do that as an industry?
I think the last couple of years has actually been a boom for the sector, because a generation that wasn't aware of agriculture or fresh food is now aware of agriculture and fresh food. And why do they want to be sat on a train for 2, 3, 4 hours a day into London, doing something that they don't want to do, when actually they could be doing what you do?
But the reason they want to do that is because they get paid well.
Yeah.
And we struggle. We kind of touched on it in our last one, didn't we? That we struggle as an industry to pay people.
It's so
enough
volatile, though, isn't it? Like, it really is, like you've just said, it's such a volatile industry. You don't know whether you're going to be able to employ staff next year. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there also is a number of people that they're not chasing. They don't want to be with Goldman Sachs and on 6 figures age 24. They actually want to enjoy life. They don't want to be committed to a business, a soulless business. But yeah, there's obviously got to be that.
Yeah, look at all the people that go out into
Joe, right.
Sorry, look at all the people that go out into the countryside and like go walking and they go cycling and they have this lifestyle attached to it. Well, like that's farming as well, isn't it? Farming's got its own lifestyle to it. So yes, it's a job, but it's also that lifestyle element.
Through social media and the stuff I do, the amount of people that are sort of, I suppose I'm probably middle-aged, that watch the channel, they're in a job they don't like, they'd love a job on a farm, but they feel they've missed out because they didn't do it from the age 16, 20, whatever. But did you speak to the lady as well? So our local college to here is starting up, I think, was it a boot camp?
Boot camp, yeah.
camp, yeah.
So basically, people that haven't got a job.
Myerscough College?
Myerscough College, yeah. Or if they want to retrain, they go on, is it 16-week
weeks.
course? And they're going to teach them whether it's fixing a fence, driving a tractor, livestock, and all this, so they can literally reskill themselves wherever they are in life. I mean, if you're 16, you could go on it, but also if you're 45, you could. And then the
It's
idea
over
is,
19-year-olds.
is it you can end up on it. But the good thing about that is the people that are 40 in life, they've got commitments, they've got children probably, they've got a mortgage. And if you do go working on your farm, they'll stay on it. The problem at the moment we seem to have with younger people is they just drift about a little bit, really.
Yeah.
And with that things then with Dee, the lady at Myerscough, from a farmer side, they're looking for farmers to match these people up. I know they've been advertising at the job centres, people out of that. So it's a really good thing. So yeah.
And if all of the colleges do it, then it's ideal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think though, on the obviously young people dropping out of agriculture, do you think, and hopefully we're all quite kind of as real life as possible about the demands of farming, but do you think there's a perception pushed on social media of farming being idealistic in the countryside, and when they get into it and realise that it can be really grueling, the hours are long and there's bad days, do you think it's a shock to them, or do you think?
I think the biggest problem we're facing is people get into the agricultural industry to be farmers, and I don't think they can see a clear route of progression. So they get in and they become well, it's certainly my industry, they become shepherds and stock persons, and they want eventually to work for themselves and be farmers, but there isn't a stepping stone. All these small farms are gone, and there's nothing. So and the thing is, as a shepherd or stocks person, you can't possibly ever earn enough to get enough capital to start up on a farm that's 500 acres. So they're trapped in this.
But they're still farmers though, aren't they?
Yeah, but I think you want to be able to see progression. You don't go into a job at grassroots and expect to stay there forever. You want to advance.
What about working for the supply sector for that particular industry? Then,
but all I can do is speak for
but
my,
But then you think we can just
sheep.
think outside the box, isn't it? I've seen some examples of farmers. I've had a question here about reducing their hours. Just thinking outside of the box, just because we've always done this, just becoming more professionals and looking at how we can do things a bit differently. Of how we treat people, how we mix jobs up a bit, job shares, things like that.
Yeah, I'm smiling because we just, with my recruitment hat on, we're just going live with a role for a vertical farming business, and they offer 30 days holiday a year plus bank holidays. Can you imagine any of you guys having 30 days holiday?
What's the bank holiday?
I think in the
What's one of
past,
those?
there was council farms, and community-run farms, and the cooperative, I think, used to own a huge, vast amount of farms, and then they sold them all off.
Yeah.
So this is the problem. People can't get into farming as a tenant unless it's a huge landlord, for instance.
And I think it gets worse as well, because if we're losing these small farms, they just make the big farms bigger, and then we have less voices. So like we make up like 1% of the industry, whereas in like places like France, agriculture makes up 7%. So they've got a much louder voice and they're more valuable because they make up more of the electorate.
Yeah.
So I just think it's really important that we kind of change this rhetoric for making farms bigger.
Just go back to my side, there's a lot of investment that's coming in internationally into agriculture, and also the ancillary sector around it, the amount of tech for whether it be vertical farming or robotics. There's a huge industry there. So if someone wants to come into the sector and perhaps can't do more than 40 hours a week, but wants to be in the sector, the supply sector, especially the ag tech sector, there's a huge boom. That's going to be here for a long time.
Yeah.
Or coming to work for Ahdb.
Yeah.
Because I've actually taken the opposite path to you guys in a way. So I grew up on a dairy farm and have ended up going out of practical farming into this side of things, and come through and worked at all of the processor and the co-op and now Ahdb. So there are other opportunities.
But both of those industries aren't, for a lot of people, are wanting the good life and they're wanting to live in the country and do that. And I think both the great jobs, but it's probably if someone wants to get into agriculture, they want the whole.
Years ago, the planning policy used to allow you to build additional houses for farm workers as well.
Yeah,
so
with the agricultural
so you
side.
could live in the country in a house tied to the job, and not in a house that you'd probably never be able to get a mortgage for because of where it was. But now that's all gone. You can't get planning on a farm.
But then what you farmers around the table, how do you think sort of we can, encourage people to come in? How can, how can we change our attitudes maybe a bit, and how do we, keep the people that are interested influenced? And because like you said, the want is theirs, and it's hard work. But I do think, so we can do our bit as farmers as well.
I
What's your
think it
thoughts on that?
starts at the top level, so it
I agree
starts
with
in
that,
the, in,
government
in,
level.
scho- in the colleges where they're teaching the land agents who have the ear of the landlords and educating them that bigger farms aren't better, and we need all these family farms to be kept intact.
Like careers advisors and stuff like that. Kids grow up playing with tractors, and then for some reason it gets like lost,
Yeah.
and then they go and, I don't know, be a fireman or something.
I can't run back at Will, because you mentioned that you're at government last couple of weeks ago, which is brilliant. Do we need more government intervention here? The government's about to spend 25 million to educate us to turn off the radiators and to cut off lights and to shut the curtains. Imagine 25 million being spent on coming to agriculture. It's a fantastic career. Is there more? Do we need more direct government involvement? Just to top a tail, we had your chairman Nicholas Sapar on broadcast with us last week, and he's nearly as eloquent as you are. And he was saying this, that he wants to see more government intervention. But
it's got to be the right sort of intervention, though, hasn't it? And this is the whole and this is the whole point. It's got to be the intervention that is going to help move the industry in the way. So we've got a great opportunity at the moment because BPS is disappearing, so the subsidy system is changing and everything else. There's an opportunity here for government to be able to intervene in the right way. And I think one of the biggest barriers to anybody coming into farming is cost, isn't it? Because you can't. I mean, ultimately that's the challenge. Nobody can afford to buy a farm, can afford to buy land. So are there ways that people can look at it to do it in a different way? Are the sharing options? What is the we know that we've got a labour shortage in terms of help on farms and everything else. Is there more that can be done to be able to advertise that in the right way and do it? So I think that there are big question to ask about actually the barriers to entry, which are huge. And I think it's brilliant that we've got people here from outside as well, because I think people fresh blood and fresh ideas into the industry are fantastic, because we're not kind of steeped in, well, this is the way that I did it and the previous generation, and it brings new ideas, freshness to it. I think it's brilliant. And we've got loads of people at Ahdb who've come in from a non-farming background, and I think they add so much value in terms of different ways of thinking. But yeah, I think government need to think about how they are using their interventions at the moment for the sector in a lot of ways. So about how the subsidy system's been replaced, how is that going to work in sustainability, but also how are we going to have a future, and how are we going to have that pipeline of succession?
Yeah, have we got a zombie government at the moment?
We won't go down that.
I wouldn't necessarily.
Sorry, I may as well read out myself. So we need to be able to pay staff stronger salaries. That comes from farmers being paid better for the produce, not the processors taking it on. And it's true, that's the thing. There's a shortage of people that don't know how to get into farming, but equally when they do, unfortunately, it isn't the best paid at the moment. And I get on my high horse that Network Rail get billions, tens of billions more support than UK Ag, yet you don't need to train 3 times a day. And when we're importing £50 billion worth of food a year and only 52% self-sufficient, I don't know whether it's the Ahdb job or what, but why aren't we telling government to help this industry out? Because if they give us 7 billion, we could probably produce an extra 20 billion pounds worth of food, pay people better, provide employment, and not have 20 billion leaving the economy every year.
Yeah, as I said, I'm trying not to get myself into too much trouble here because we aren't a so we're not a lobbying organisation. So we wouldn't be in there telling government what they should. What we can do is provide evidence. So what evidence have we got to support that? So what information have we got that actually makes a difference? And that's what I was doing down at Parliament a few weeks ago. I was saying, right, this is actually the facts. There's all this here. So this is actually what the facts are. I think this is where some other organisations come in as well. So the NFU, they're in a place where they can lobby, where they can fire grenades, as are all the other unions out there. So I think again, this is a joined up effort. can we supply the evidence that's going to help them, and and what's been fed back to us, and then other people go and make sure that they're making their voices heard.
So you know the stats of import, export.
Yeah, we know what. Yeah,
you know the
yeah.
cost of inflation on everything that we're doing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Perfect. Isn't it?
And so that's it. And so
So
when I was down there,
as well as NFU, then we need to
absolutely everybody is. So just for context, while I was giving evidence the other day, there was me, there was Minette Batters, and there was Ed, whose surname I have forgotten now, from AIC, who were both there. And so he was giving basically a really clear view on like fertilizer and input prices and everything else. Minette was giving it both barrels from a farmer point of view, and I was there to add kind of the overall information about take up and everything. So that's where working together does it. But again, it's everybody here. It's making the noise. It's pushing it on.
Just looking to create some positivity, and I know that the Ahdb can't comment. Today, Norfolk Farming Conference, the Shadow Depot Minister was there. He's speaking at the Oxford Farming Conference in January. It's apparently very difficult to get anyone from DEFRA to go speak to anything. If there is a change in government in 2 years' time, the Labour Party has been heavily lobbied on a positive basis by the sector, so we might see some positive changes if there is a change in government a couple of years down the line.
Positivity is really important, because we are in a brilliant industry that is fantastic, that is feeding people, that is it's a joy to work in. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm sure everybody around here loves what they do, and there aren't many industries where you can say that, where people, and we're doing so much good to everything, and so there are so many reasons to be positive. And always come back to the fact people are going to need to eat. There are more mouths to feed. So whether that's in this country or abroad, there is a really positive future for us.
And there is a lot of positivity, though. I get that public support for British farmers and looking for, well, I say the British flag, that's not always the best thing to do, depending, but looking for those things. So if all these things are in place, and supposedly we've got public support, supposedly we're doing good things, why can we not even break even in some cases and make a profit? And I think there's a lot of problems in the supply chain. We've seen that recently with more than one sector. So is the AHDB doing things in the supply chain to try and redistribute, or show, do you have the evidence to show where it needs redistributing? Because I talk about that, I'm like, yeah, it just needs redistributing in the supply chain, but I don't really know how, where, is that where you?
So we're not really here to. We're not here to negotiate in the supply chain. We're not here to say who's doing the right and who's doing wrong. Again, there's some evidence that we can provide to be able to do that. I mean, ultimately there has to be enough in it for everybody, because if there isn't, processors haven't got a product without farmers to be able to produce it, and vice versa. If there's no processors, you've not got anywhere to sell your product, and there's nowhere for it to get to the end consumer. So it has to be enough for everybody to do that. We can't get into the kind of the how it is, and so we get a levy from the processors as well. So it's not just farmers. We get so beef, for example, £4 and 5p for the farmers and £1.20 for the processors. So we're working we do work across the supply chain, but it's not our job to say you should be paying this or you should be paying that. I mean, we can give evidence in terms of pricing and what people are paying, but it's
and a big part of what we do, which we haven't actually talked about, is market intelligence data.
Yeah, we do a huge amount. So that's for anything from wheat pricing and future through to beef and sheep prices. What's happening now? What's happening live weight? What's happening? There's kind of like literally a wealth of information. So back page of the Farming Press every week, all the prices that are done in there come through us.
On the remittance from the auctions, when it actually says this is how much we are taking from you today, could you somehow get information? I know you say you don't have access to each.
Yeah, so some of it. So we do try and work with them, but ultimately it's down. So I think that on the arrangements and the kill sheets and everything else, there's a certain amount of information on there, and it's quite valuable kind of space for them. So, and they have helped us out previously where they've put some information on. So when we did the Shape the Future vote, they put some information on there about a link through. So we have had some of that in the past, but I think that it's difficult because there's a limited amount of space there, and I'm sure that everybody would want a piece of it. But again, we have to demonstrate value in what we're doing, so that people can sit up and in the process lights up and think, well, actually, this is a really good message. We want to get more of it out there. We want to get more of it on there. So all this is incumbent on us doing a good job at what we do, because it's all right me sitting here and saying, oh, look at this, look at all these things we're doing. Unless we can actually do that and prove that it makes a difference, it's all rubbish. So we are in so that's what we're trying to do now, prove exactly what we're doing as well.
Changing the subject a bit, Emma, one on your Instagram from the Rainbow Farmer talking about diversity and a big subject, and we should maybe come back on another time talking about that. But so what's your thoughts on that, to get more people and more diversity into the industry?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because it's kind of like the last stand. It's very dominated by, well, middle-aged men, isn't it?
Yeah.
The whole industry.
White middle-aged men.
Yeah.
Yeah, pale, male and stale.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly true.
And you see it at the auction marts.
Sorry.
There's everyone falls into that category, and I don't know how we go together.
I think geography stands in the way a lot of the time, because like in the middle of Cumbria, it's getting people from more diverse backgrounds, say Preston, Manchester, that kind of thing. How do you entice people from the city to get them into the country to make it more diverse? It's not a case of like, oh, there's no black farmers. Well, that's because they've never had the opportunity. It's getting people connected and bridging that massive gap. And I think that's a really hard thing to do.
Even what you talked about, Ollie, with like the housing things, affordability of housing is going to stop you coming from a city and potentially on the whole cheaper housing, depending on which city and where you are, into, quite frankly, an unaffordable village, rural country environment. You just can't do it. That is one of the biggest barriers to entry. You're not going to have anywhere to live.
Geography is huge and you can't change it. It's a physical barrier, isn't it? It's not like, oh, it's a mindset. It's someone traveling.
There's a lot of farms around cities as well, though,
Well, yeah, there is city farms.
And it's coming from. So we kind of officially came to the end of it. But are you guys happy to carry on for another 15 minutes or so? Loads of questions coming in, I think. So yeah, so let's carry on for a bit more.
I was just going to start on that point about diversity and everything, and it is a real challenge, and it's probably back to the same challenge we're talking about even getting labour in. So like it's getting anybody into it, no matter what ethnicity or whatever. But I have seen over this last few years actually lots more women coming through, and there's been a definite noticeable change for me over this year in everybody I work with. There are more and more women coming into senior positions and everything else, which I think it's diversity and everything adds different views, it adds everything. I think it's brilliant.
And there are some really good champions.
Even
We
around here
have
today.
Thebe, and he's done a Nuffield scholarship on that, and the Flavian that we'll have here in January. So it's normalising it. Ollie,
we're pretty much outnumbered here. But another college the other way, Reese Heath, one of their courses this year, an ag course, I'm not just sure which one, actually has more females on it than males.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. But just back to the house prices, there's a reason house prices in rural locations are dearer, and that kind of because everyone wants to be there. Well, why everyone also wants to work on a farm, but how do we get them on it? That's the thing, isn't it? It'd be great if we could pay them more. I think that's the main problem.
Yes, it is. Paying more.
Say, for example, you are in the city having a fairly well-paid job, because farming isn't exactly up there on the paid grade job. You want to go into farming, live in the countryside, but you're going to have to go. Same time, you want to go into farming, and you're like, hold on, I'm getting set amount a year, and then I want to go into farming. It's going to drop right down because it's not a high-paid job. And then you go, oh, then I can't.
but there's other benefits. So there's an outsides and all of that. Back on your comment earlier about some big farms, with this labour life cycle, we did some case studies and some of the podcasts that we did. And actually, since some of the smaller companies, people like the fact of a smaller family farm, actually you've got something to sell there.
Yeah.
We think, but actually that spirit and community that you've got a big selling point there.
People want farms, not factories. They love the idea of everything in this sort of little family unit, and I think that's kind of borne out by the popularity of shows like Our Yorkshire Farm and like The Country File. I think
we where we are, we don't really suffer with labour. Like I will get quite a few people every year. I probably have about 5 or 6 people will turn up into the yard wanting a job, but we are close to 3 major towns.
Yeah,
it's
geography again. See where we come from. Historically, there wouldn't be a shortage of labour because there would be umpteen young families in the village, and obviously the sons would be recruited to come and work on the farm. That was how it worked. They're all moving out, they're moving away, and they're all holiday homes. It's a different thing altogether now. It's not just a farming crisis. I think it's a national.
So just as we drawing to So we'll go on for a little bit more, but if you're watching, listening, wherever, so can you put on there future topics you want? And there are loads of questions coming in, but tell us where you're from, tell us, what industry you're in, what sector you're in, but also future topics. So before we shut off, so we can have that for future, because
yeah, it'd be nice to know if some of the people watching aren't farmers, so we can see
what the demographic is.
Yeah, what the demographic is. So if you can comment, do that on all the different streams.
Can I just quick go back to on the salary one? Just we picked up in the last couple of months that I won't name numbers, but farm managers on arable units in East Anglia, they're getting significant pay rises because just like all of us, we've got increased cost domestically, but also those employers know that they need to pay more to secure them. So that's actually causing a positive wage bubble. And I know it's such a complex thing because it's going to be unaffordable for some farms, but other farms that can afford to pay their teams of staff more, we are seeing that coming through quite significant sizes.
I think it'd be very interesting to know, though, who owns the farm, how big the farm is, and have they got income from another source.
I think food, feed and fertilizer are so high at the minute that you couldn't possibly afford to employ anybody.
Yeah.
And farms are trying to kit themselves out to be as efficient as possible. Therefore, they don't have to take on labour. That's more on the arable side in terms of actual kit.
For
But
us
I was
as
going
well.
to say
It's true for us, we're going into robotics, so we don't have to employ anybody. And
so we'll be doing
yeah.
ourselves out of it by maximising our efficiency. We'll we'll shorten that
But
need.
again, another reason for people to come into the sector, because it's not just driving the tractor, you're driving a computer, and to have all that skill set behind that, and the education that you'll need to do that would be fascinating to get involved with.
I've had a comment from a nurse who's wanting to be a farmer and asking if this will be available to watch afterwards. She missed a bit on the retraining boot camp, which was a very interesting bit, which Ollie touched on. I mean, I don't know who else will be posting afterwards, but it'll be on
Ahdb, all of their feeds, LinkedIn, Facebook. You'll be able to watch this as a record afterwards.
Yeah, it'll stay on.
It'll stay on all our YouTube.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and actually Instagram and the TikToks it falls.
And
on day whatever 9, then you talked a bit about, or you interviewed the
I put it in that group. Was
Yes,
it last?
you did.
Yeah.
It was last Thursday. So what day?
go and crawl through all these things and you'll find it.
So, and if anybody wants to, the first version of this is also on the HDB YouTube channel. So there's lots and lots of stuff on there. So if you want to see a slightly more chaotic version today, it's the prequel is still available.
Had a question here about some smaller farms and what Ahdb offer for smaller farms. Somebody said it feels like we're geared more towards bigger farms. So what's your comment on that? You guys, and what's your thoughts on that?
So I mean, so just to start off, I think that the offering is, so the stuff that we do that's basically a halo stuff that's everybody. So exports marketing, that's everybody. It doesn't matter how small you are, how big you are. You want people to be buying the product. I think if you go down into it, there's lots of things that people can buy into on an individual basis, depending on if you want it. So there's a lot of advice on there. So as we said, some of the historical stuff about the technical work that we do and everything else. So I think there's a bit in there for everybody. But I think that the big ticket items are those things that kind of offer that go across everybody. Recommended list is a really important one from an arable point of view. Really important.
You're laughing, Ollie.
I'm laughing because you do it every single year, and I know it's quite expensive, and I don't know whether it should be every other year.
Yeah, so I am not the expert on that, but it's something that we'll take away and we'll have a look at, because we want to make sure with everything we do. So I know with the recommended list there has to be a frequency to be able to do it, to make sure that the statistics add up in the right way, and but we want to be as efficient as we can in everything.
A question came in: why can you not promote British?
My favourite question. So, do you want the really boring technical answer? I'll try and make it really clear. So,
7 seconds.
7 seconds. Okay, right. So really clear. It's illegal at the moment. So, in terms of the way it's written into legislation at the moment is that it's what's called state aid, which means that you can't promote over your because we're government based, because you can't promote your country over the other ones. And so it was written in when we're in the EU. When we left the EU, it was written into UK law. So it's going to be reconsidered again this year. And so that's going through a reconsideration. But as it stands at the moment, we aren't allowed to write British. So we find other ways around it. We use the red tractor logo, which has obviously got the Union Jack in it, and we've got various other things. So we try and find other ways around it. But at the moment, we're not allowed to. We carry on to push to try and make sure that we can do as soon as we can.
So it could change then.
Could change.
So it's lift and
There's
shift,
nothing. So it's lift and
clear.
shift at the moment. So as it is. So as with a lot of the EU legislation, it was just dropped in with a UK.
So we need to lobby that.
Absolutely. So so absolutely. And I mean, I know that I've talked to Minette from NFU about it. I've talked to various pig producers about it. So like the Morgan Sisters and various others. So anybody who wants to push forward, do so, because state aid. So in my view, state aid isn't about whether we put British in our advert or not. It's about government bailing out the steel industry if it falls into hard times. So I think that could change. But you can't at the moment.
Have you got a comment there? Or?
No, reading the comments. I'm quite intrigued. Sorry, don't mind me.
The guy here in Kentucky, USA, says he finds it really interesting. He's not a farmer. But
We like to hear.
I've had a couple of offers of people to come and work anyway.
Yeah,
You're recruiting, is it? This is
I'm talking about the internet, Steve. No Netflix.
Right. Any more final comments, questions?
What's your favourite view on your farm for all you farmers?
Oh,
Come on,
like
favourite view.
from the bedroom window, or just so you can see the sea.
Tell the camera.
All right, okay, sorry. Yeah, from our bedroom window, you can see the sea and Isle of Arran. Beautiful.
it is very nice.
So that's a hard one to start with. So what's your favourite view? And then
You know, go on.
Doncaster.
The old pit stacks. Lovely now. Yeah. Aldi distribution centre.
These lorries coming in, my God. Little Scanias, lovely.
We've got beautiful Scottish sheep. We've got
Aldi. Most I would say just the view out my tractor. At your cab is your best view. It's a different scene each day.
different postcodes.
Exactly. You haven't got
That's where
separate.
you were, is it?
You can see for miles.
you can see the sea still. Way away.
I'm moving county.
I would say there's a couple of, we're not that hilly, but from a couple of the hills, you can look across to the White Horse on a clear day. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yes, that's in North Yorkshire.
There's a White Horse down in Wiltshire as well.
Yeah, ours is better though.
I'm very lucky to live on a farm, so even though I'm not a farmer, and a gorgeous view out of the Sussex, Weald, looking up to the North Downs. So yeah, on a nice misty morning, brilliant.
Nice. We have the Northern Pennines and Great Dunfell, which is it's stunning. It really is. It's beautiful. It's one of I love it.
We here at Ollie's, Liverpool is behind
the view out of that. I think it's when the combine and the tractor are going up the field at the same time, and it's just the dust flying, and it's a sunny day.
Well, so I don't live on a farm anymore. We used to have when we used to farm, we were in Derbyshire, and our farm was called Banks Farm, and it literally sat on a bank, and we got a little wood in the bottom, and if you looked across the top bank, you could just look down into the wood with all the wildlife in the bottom, and then you look out over all the cows out. And in the middle of summer, that is the best job in the world. When you're trying to in the middle of winter trying to unblock a frozen water trough. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been too long. That potentially isn't quite as a good a view on those ones.
It's blocked it out over
Absolutely, it is the house. I still feel cold.
The highlight of the point, we all know people who are stuck on a train that we meet at our pub or at dinner parties, who are just so frustrated with life, and you just listen to everyone here with the beauty and the excitement of agriculture. That's why we need to protect it and encourage more people to join with it.
And to complete it, what's yours?
Suffolk, I've got my favourite wood. I walk my dogs around called Freewood, and this time of year it's just delightful. It is a nature reserve in its own right. So yeah, Suffolk, bit flat, but the Westwood trees is gorgeous.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Tom Pemberton's just joined.
Late to the party.
A bit late, Tom. But so tonight we talked about Ahdb, who we are, what we do, our plans for the next 5 years. Talked a bit about labour, how to get into the industry, how we can draw more people into the industry. You can find this recording on where, Joe?
AHDB YouTube.
And on all of that other stuff. So if we just go around the rooms and remind us who you are, where people can find you, how they can follow you. Right, Emma.
So you can find me on Instagram and TikTok, but I'm not TikTok famous like this lady.
I am Gina, as you all know. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram.
And give your handles or whatever they're called.
Okay, mine is Emma Gray Shepherdess.
I don't actually know.
You didn't know this last time, did you?
I think it's just Georgina Samet on both. No, Gina Samet on Instagram and Georgina Samet on TikTok. There we go.
Mine's simple, so it's just Joe Seals on YouTube again, and on TikTok as well, where I started. So yeah, Joe Seals on TikTok. Are you on YouTube and TikTok yet?
Well, I'm not on. I'm not on yet. I need to start now. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. Will J Agri, and I'll answer any other questions you've got.
Rebecca Wilson 722 on Instagram. I got asked that in Young Farmers. Why is it that number? And I'm like, it's not. There's probably seven.
Ben 722.
No. JD 6930 or something. No, sorry.
You were up there. And
That's the answer next time.
Yeah.
And then Becca Farms on YouTube. I've just started that, so could do with some subscribers.
So I'm Agri Isaac and on Twitter and Isaac Agri Leader on Instagram. I'm nearly on 200 followers, I think.
Charlotte Ashley Farms on TikTok, YouTube, well, everything. TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Charlotte Ashley Farms.
Mine's either Agri Contract or Ollie Blogs on all of them.
I can't remember any of mine, but if you go to Beanstalk Global, I don't think you'll find us there. Do I just promote that for the HPD tomorrow?
Also, tomorrow, if you're near, because I think some of these guys are going as well. It is 10:30 up the road in Hale Village. So it's about tyres, traction, and compaction.
Okay. Do you think the Chapman could make it?
I don't know, probably not.
You can do it tomorrow, and you'll do it for him tomorrow on your channel.
Yeah, you'll see some of it tomorrow on YouTube.
Right, so thank you all for another really enjoyable evening. Thank you all for listening in. The next one will be at the Lama Show, and we're talking about engaging with the public. But put your comments in there. Tell us where you're from, but also future topics that you want us to talk about. But thank you all.
Thank you. Cheers.